I think the future of all things marketing is gonna be founder first. There's no such thing as a brand anymore, and that's becoming more and more true, and this is going to be exacerbated by everything that we're seeing in the AI space. I don't know the last time I engaged with a company profile on any social platform. Do you?
Never. I
E Ever,
probably
never,
never.
ever, never. Why would we? Don't try to please everybody. Just, dude, go out there and be yourself, and you're gonna attract people and you're gonna repel people, and both of those are good.
Welcome to the Franchise Freedom Podcast, where you can escape the corporate trap through franchise ownership. Here's your host, Giuseppe Grammatico, the franchise guide.
Welcome to the Franchise Freedom Podcast. I'm your host, Giuseppe Grammatico, your franchise guide. We have a really exciting episode for you today. It's a two-part series, but before I get into that, wanted to thank everyone for joining us today. I really appreciate your feedback. It's November 20th. We've never, ever received so many comments, feedback, ideas for future episodes. We really appreciate that. So if you have a question, if there's something that you want us to talk about and dive a little bit deeper, let us know. Comment on whatever platform you find the show on. Send us an email. Go right to the website, ggthefranchiseguide.com, and just send us a message. There's a contact button on there. Really excited and really appreciate, again, all the feedback. So for anyone that has questions, take advantage of this. We are creating content for the first half of next year. I'm going to bring my guest. So our guest today is Kasim Aslam. So Kasim rhymes like awesome, because I always screw that up. I heard on one of the episodes. Welcome to the Franchise Freedom Podcast.
Thanks for having me, Giuseppe. Appreciate you.
Yeah, this is awesome. I'm going to give a little bit of a bio. You have a very impressive backstory. So, co-founder of Pareto Talent, one of the top ranked recruitment firms in the world. What else? Co-founder of Driven Mastermind, which we're going to talk about today. Co-author of You versus Google, and there is a recent book which I want to talk about today, which I thought was really impressive and a cool idea. Followed by the founder and recently sold Solutions 8, the number one ranked Google ad agency. So again, welcome to the show. Really impressive bio. And that bio was a lot longer than what I just gave. So thanks again
Oh, I'm glad you
for
chopped
coming.
it up. I'm sick of sitting through no, it's a mild exercise in narcissism, that thing.
Yeah, well, we'll put. I always say we'll put it in the show notes. So, well, I wanted to bring you on the show just because I've been following you for a while. I came across actually a friend of ours, Eric Van Horn. You were on the Franchise Secrets podcast talking about marketing. I don't know if you remember that episode, but
Oh, yeah.
talking about
Yeah.
what I don't and if you want it, we can either link the show or you can fill the audience in. But just your simple strategy of repurposing a simple video and what you could do with that. So the floor is yours if you want to take that on in a few minutes, or we can link the show. I'll leave that one up to you.
I'll try to give you the pitch in 60 seconds.
Okay.
Before I talk about why this or how to do it, I'm gonna talk about why it's important. Is that okay? A little bit of
Perfect.
a preface. I think the future of all things marketing is gonna be founder first. There's no such thing as a brand anymore, and that's becoming more and more true, and this is going to be exacerbated by everything that we're seeing in the AI space. So everything's getting automated. You're seeing, like, AI-driven user-generated content and reviews. People can clone, copy, script, et cetera, et cetera. So what that means is the human-to-human connection is gonna become exponentially more important. People need to trust. There's no shortage of information out there, so then the question becomes, well, what are my conduits of information? Because the information's accessible, but I don't know how to distill it, and the distillation of the information is gonna come from thought leadership, and thought leadership has to come from a person. For instance, you don't listen to Bridgewater, you listen to Ray Dalio, right?
Right.
You listen, like, when you think about the people that you'd really tune into, Warren Buffett or Tony Robbins or Ellen DeGeneres or Oprah Winfrey or Donald Trump or whoever, attract and repel. Dean Graziosi. You listen to individual humans, and if you're listening to this podcast, I'm here to tell you some probably horrible news. You have to be founder first. There's no alternative, and if you're not willing to do that, your competitor will. So for everybody that wants to hide in the background, it's just a tough road ahead for you. And if you think to yourself like, "Well, I don't like being on camera, I don't like being on stage, or I'm not good at interviews." The thing that you don't understand is you actually have an absolute superpower. You have authenticity. And if you look at the people that really capture attention, they're not the best speakers. Look at Patrick Bet-David. Patrick Bet-David's not a good speaker at all, but everybody loves him. And that's why there's a charm to his ability to just get
Genuine.
up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's absolutely genuine.
Yeah.
So you wanna be founder first. How do I be founder first, Cosm? Well, you have to create content. And the minute I say that, everybody gets overwhelmed. Here's the benefit. With 1 hour a week, I could carpet bomb the content airwaves. And this is a really good example, Giuseppe. Imagine that you and I did a podcast today for an hour. And I use an hour because it's the amount of content that you would need in order to feed all of the content airwaves. So if we shot a podcast for an hour, that's 60 minutes worth of content, and what we would need to do is span 5 topics, which you're gonna do organically anyway if you're talking for an hour. That 1-hour podcast gets repurposed in hundreds of different ways, so I can split it up into 5 separate YouTube videos. That means 1 YouTube video for every business day, which is what YouTube wants to see algorithmically in order to start recommending you. I can strip the audio and put it on, Audible and Spotify and Apple Podcasts to have an actual audio-driven podcast. I can transcribe the audio, and I can turn that into blogs, either 1 blog or multiple blogs, also email newsletters, also Twitter threads. I can take the YouTube videos, cut them into Instagram carousels. I can cut the YouTube videos into reels for Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn. I can take the transcription going back to that and turn it into a long form post on both Facebook and LinkedIn. There's no shortage, like one 10-minute video can make 50 reels.
Right.
So there's no shortage of repurposing opportunities, but what you've done is you've allowed yourself to be everywhere your customer may be. And you can do infographics and Pinterest, like, you can dive deep, 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 deep. There's this doesn't the well does not run dry here, just on this
Right.
one piece of content. And then all roads link back. In my opinion, by the way, and I'm about to be really bullish here, all roads should link back to YouTube,
Mhm.
which I know is really weird to say. It's like, why would I pick that one arbitrarily out of all the other ones? Your website is not a living, breathing entity.
Mhm.
All social channels are meant to detract attention, with YouTube being the single exception. YouTube actually wants retention. YouTube will recommend your videos, not necessarily other channels, as long as you continue to have content to feed your customers. The average time on site across the internet is 60 to 90 seconds. The average time on site on YouTube is 20 minutes.
Oh, wow.
And YouTube prioritizes long form content. So what you want to do is take all your little short form content and then say full show here, and then you link to YouTube. I even link my podcasts back to YouTube because it's visual and audio driven.
Mhm.
YouTube, believe it or not, is the most popular podcast platform. So the YouTube subscriber is worth many, 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 many multiples. And you know this because the free market says so. Go try to buy, if you go look at, there's a bunch of websites that sell social platforms. You can buy an Instagram profile with millions of followers. It's the same price as a YouTube profile with 50,000 followers. So the YouTube subscriber is worth much more than, an Instagram or a Facebook or TikTok, because it's stickier, it's deeper, they're a more engaged user base. They're harder to move, but that's actually to your benefit too, because once you capture them, they're harder to move away. So I'm a huge fan of YouTube for a lot of reasons, and I think that you could use my repurposing strategy to really be to create a strong presence in whatever space you happen to be in. And talking to franchise owners, that ends up being easier for you than for most business owners, because most franchises are geocentric,
Right.
geolocated.
Right.
And so when you can create content, what people want now out of content is they want specificity. And so if you can create content that's specific to where they are geographically, you the big brands can't compete with that. They just can't be feet on the street in Fargo, North Dakota or Albuquerque, New Mexico. Like, they they're never gonna be able to do that. So your ability to create content like that means that you're gonna be immensely more valuable than anybody else who steps into the ecosystem.
That is really interesting, and that's completely true. That makes a ton of sense. And I think human to human, I mean, we're going back to the basics, right? I think
Dude,
you can't hide behind the brand anymore. You really have to differentiate yourself. So with that being said, is there a need? Is it just to kind of say, yeah, I have it? Do you need a company profile on LinkedIn, on Facebook? Do you not?
functionally, yes. I mean, your Facebook business profile is attached to your business ad manager. So from a functional and technical perspective, you're always gonna need those things. Dude, I don't know. I really mean this too. I don't know the last time I engaged with a company profile on any social platform. Do you?
Never. I
Ever,
probably
never,
never.
ever, never. Why would we? You know what I did actually? I recently tweeted at Verizon Wireless because I was mad at them.
Right.
That's the only time.
I've seen that.
Yeah. I'll tweet at a brand if I'm like, "Hey, you're screwing up." And in my opinion, Verizon Wireless was, like, not complying with FTC laws.
Mm.
So I was just pissed because it was taking me forever to cancel a line. But no, you don't nobody engages with brands. Why would they? And when you look at the founder first paradigm, what's really interesting about when you advertise a founder, I sold a business in October 2022 for an eight-figure sum to a SoftBank-backed MarTech company. Here's what's crazy about that. I spent on the way to selling, the 2 years prior to selling, I spent $150,000 a month in YouTube ads alone. That doesn't
Wow.
count other channels, and we were advertising those channels really heavily. $150,000 a month is $1.8 million a year. Doing that for 2 years is $3.6 million. I have $3.6 million in brand equity in this YouTube channel, the Solutions at YouTube channel. And when I sold my business, they did not care at all. I could have
Wow.
kept that. I probably could have negotiated to keep the channel. So what I should have done if I were a smarter man is put that $3.6 million into my Kasim Aslam's YouTube channel, build the same brand equity, go promote Google ads. When I sell my Google ad agency, guess what I'm left with? A super viable personal brand. And those
Right.
40,000 subscribers that I sold away are now mine. So it's cool because you can see, dude, like, look at Ryan Reynolds. Ryan Reynolds is selling cell phone service
Everything.
and whatever tequila he's got and what because once you have a personal brand, Alex Hormozy is doing the same thing. What's that name? Grant Cardone. Grant Cardone's doing the same. He just slaps 10x on freaking everything. Trump did it. So as soon as you have a personal brand, dude, you can sell literally anything and everything.
Yeah, it doesn't go
Yep.
away, right? Yeah, you could sell, you could buy and sell, you can have 20 different businesses. You're right. You're
Yeah.
absolutely right. That makes a lot of sense.
So building the personal brand, going founder first, I think is a critical prerequisite.
Mhm.
You don't have to be, you don't have to look like Ryan Reynolds. You don't have to be tall and good looking. You don't have to be well spoken. You just have to be authentic.
Mhm.
People want authenticity, and I'm about to use a dangerous word here, and it's going to repel everybody. They want authenticity and vulnerability. But what does that really mean? Just be willing to make mistakes. That's what everybody's biggest fear is like, "Oh, well, what if I get up there and make a mistake?" And my answer is like, "Great! That's what everybody wants you to do." So, if they can
That's
see authenticity and vulnerability, man, you're off to the races. And you don't need millions of subscribers, especially if you're in a small market. You might only need 1,000. I had an 8-figure exit on a YouTube channel that at the time only had 30,000 subscribers.
wow.
In the world of digital marketing, 30,000 subscribers is like adjusted for margin of error is nothing. But it was in a really valuable niche. Really, 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 really valuable niche, and we ate off of our YouTube channel. If you're in a small geocentric niche, man, you don't need a huge audience. You need a small, very focused audience, and the profit potential there is insane. I come from a background of paid traffic, so I can say with great confidence, we had $100 million in ad spend under management when we sold. Traffic is the most expensive part of any business. It's the lifeblood of a business. You can have the best product, the best service, the best operations, the best finance, the best ideas, the best guarantees, the best offer. If you don't have traffic, if a tree falls in a forest, if you don't have traffic, it is over for you. And to pay for traffic means you were hooked up to the power teat in a way that makes you heavily, heavily, heavily dependent upon whoever you're paying. So what we should all do as business owners is go ask ourselves, how do I build a mechanism that would allow me to not pay for traffic? And that's community. That's what you're doing here, your podcast community, an email newsletter, your YouTube community, your Instagram community, maybe your real community. God forbid somebody actually puts together hey, let's all meet down at the Italian restaurant and get together belly to belly. That's the way that you can get away from paying for traffic. Because I've seen way too many businesses, and I saw it all the time when I was in the paid traffic game. Google changes the algorithm. A big competitor enters the
Yeah.
space, the market turns, and their business is gone, vaporized in 90 days. I saw one of our clients was I'll try to veil their identity so I don't slander them because
Mhm.
brilliant people, but their model failed. They were in a specialized SaaS space. So they offered a very specific service to a very specific niche. It was like tech support type of niche. And they were killing it. They were minting money. Their cost per click at the time was $15. Within 90 days, two or three of their biggest competitors got massive private equity injection and their
Shut it
CPC
up.
goes from 15 to 150. Killed them. Killed them. They ended up I don't think they sold, I think they merged, but they had to roll themselves into a bigger company because they couldn't afford to compete anymore, even though they had a better product. So building a brand and producing content puts you in a position to not be at the mercy of that. Because if somebody controls the eyeballs and you have no influence on where those eyeballs go, man, you're just a prey animal waiting to get slaughtered.
I agree with that, and that was a big part of, do I buy leads? Do I do paid ads, or do I
Yep.
do it, organically, like I have, posting every single day in videos? And you're right. I mean, in the beginning, no one's really seeing anything you're putting out there. You're right. You want it sustainable. So what is, if you don't go the paid ad route, is it just consistency? Is it Google and all these platforms like the consistency, and then it starts, putting you in people's feeds? I guess what
Yeah.
what else is, I know there's a ton there, but we get these questions, and
Well,
we've
no, I
had.
have 5 factors for you. I
Oh,
so I
cool.
learned this, there's a guy named Evan Carmichael, he's one of the biggest names in YouTube. I would do this so embarrassing. I was hanging out do you know who Joe Polish is? Genius
The
Network?
Genius Network. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I love Joe, he's been an entrepreneurial hero of mine for a long time, and I finally get to meet this guy. And I meet him and he asked me for kind of a favor, but just my opinion. He's like, "Hey, what would you do with all this content that I have?" So I thought about it and I shot him a message. I was like, "Joe, I think YouTube's the answer. I'd love to tell you why." So he brings me into his office to pitch him on this idea that I have.
Mhm.
And in his office are just some other people that I don't know. I don't know who these folks are. And I dive and you've already, had to sit here and listen to me just mouth vomit. So you can tell I love the sound of my own voice. I don't shut up and I don't stop and listen long enough to figure
That's
out.
why we had you on. We
Yeah.
we figured I said I didn't wanna talk too much.
Just wind them up and cut them loose. So I spend an hour, maybe not quite that much, but the better part of an hour melting Joe's face with my opinions on YouTube and how and why he should use YouTube and what my plan would be for him. And I've been pretty successful on YouTube, which is why I felt confident presenting this to Joe Polish. And then he turns to the guy sitting next to him, who I had just been introduced to as Evan. So he turns to Evan, he goes, "How was that?" And Evan looks at Joe and he goes, "It was mostly right." And in my mind, I was like, "Who the hell
Wow.
is this guy to tell me?" You know what I mean? Like I got 30,000 subscribers on YouTube, Joker. And it
Right.
turns out he's one of the greatest YouTubers in the world, and he's got millions of followers, and I got just humbled in an instant.
It set
So
you up. They didn't even tell
yeah,
you that.
he really did. No, dude, Joe's not like that. It's just I told YouTube, he's like, "Oh, I know a YouTube guy." Asked him to sit in on the conversation. Wasn't trying to be a prick. If I'd have been a smarter man, I'd have maybe done some due diligence before I'd run around and sprechen my bushy babble. But Evan was so kind, and he sat me down and took me to school, and he taught me with YouTube specifically, there's 5 factors to pay attention to. The first one is you need to post every single day for 90 days before you begin getting any views. So you're gonna post that's every business day. Every business day for 90 days, and it's gonna be nothing. Goose egg, 1 view, goose egg, 2 views, goose egg, 1 view, goose egg, 5 views, whatever. On your 91st day, Google owns YouTube, by the way, for the listeners that don't know. Google's gonna go, "Okay, I believe you," because what they don't wanna do is they don't wanna start recommending Giuseppe and then find out that, like, you lose steam, which is what most content creators do. So on day 91, they begin recommending you, and you begin going into their recommendation engine, and if you keep it up and here's the other piece, if your content's good. Isn't it weird that I have to say that? Like, the a priori assumption here is that you actually know what the hell you're talking about.
People forget that. They're checking off all the boxes but
Dude,
that.
yeah, so if you're just creating garbage or you're not providing more value or worse of all, if you're sitting on the fence.
Mhm.
Don't try to be everything to everybody. Don't try to please everybody. Just go out there and be yourself. And you're going to attract people and you're going to repel people. And both of those are good. Day 91, you start getting recommended. By day 180, you should actually see a trajectory that really feeds you.
Mhm.
And you want to do the things that you would assume YouTube wants you to do. Respond to comments, engage listeners, etc.
Right.
So, number 1, post every single business day. Factor number 1 in YouTube specifically. Number 2, you need a 70% retention at the 60-second mark. You have to have a 70% retention at the 60-second mark. That means that 70% of the people that click on that ad or click on that video, excuse me, it's not an ad. This isn't paid. This is organic. I'm just too used to saying ads. 70% of the people that click on the ad or click on the video continue to watch past 60 seconds. Now, what does that mean? That means that you cannot clickbait.
Right.
Because if you get too cute and creative in your title and you make it so clicky that you attract people that shouldn't necessarily be watching, you're going to have huge click-through rate, low observation rate.
It'll
People
drop
drop
off,
off.
right?
You want retention. You'd actually have you want less viewers with longer retention. You want your videos to be 10 minutes or longer. YouTube prioritizes long form videos. Yes, there's YouTube Shorts. Yes, they're great. Those don't count. Those are your repurposed content. The most important factor in a YouTube video is the title and description. Excuse me, the title and the thumbnail. Before you even Mr. Beast talks about this all the time. Before he even shoots a video, he's ideating on the thumbnail. He shoots the videos around the thumbnails that he thinks are going to get the most observation. And then number 5 is interesting. Your call to action is not go to my website, subscribe to my thing, buy the thing, call the thing, whatever. It's watch this next video. YouTube wants retention. So send them to another one of your videos or another video on YouTube. Doesn't matter. It might matter for you. It doesn't matter to YouTube. They want them to stay inside of YouTube. If you can do those 5 things, that's the category kingmaker inside of YouTube. And the paradigm and thesis carries over to some other channels in different ways. Like
Right.
Instagram and TikTok obviously don't want long form content, but they want retention, clearly. So the idea that you'd be providing an immense amount of value and then chopping that value up and putting it into other networks. But this is why I want them to come back to YouTube. Even if I branch out into other networks, coming back to YouTube, YouTube is where you can really grow a community. You can actually talk to people one to one. You can have memberships. You can have private conversations. You can have tiered content, private content, gated content, paid content. paid subscribers, open subscriptions, and your subscribers actually receive alerts when you go live. Like when you get a Facebook follower, it means nothing,
Right.
nothing. Because you post, even if they're in your group, get someone in your Facebook group. Go ahead. God bless. Wish you luck. Guess what happens? You post anything, something like 0.3% of your Facebook group ever sees the post or gets the notification from Facebook. So if you get them in Meta, Meta owns them. You get them in Twitter, Twitter owns them. Twitter does a little bit better job. If you get them in LinkedIn, LinkedIn owns them. But you get them in YouTube, and you can really engage people. It's as close as you can get before you have to just create your own membership site, which is worth doing too.
So the question is, from a solopreneur standpoint, because a lot of the listeners are solopreneurs, we did a poll, who's listening, people looking to buy franchise, existing franchisees. Some of them only have one or two employees or staff. So the question is, what's the best route? People have never edited video, ever uploaded to YouTube. Is it a VA, which we'll get into detail? Is it an agency? Is it a combination? Because that's
Sure as
where
shit is
some
not
people
an
get stuck.
agency. Yeah, agencies are all full of it. I'm telling you, as an agency guy, dude, I've built 5, 7, and 8-figure agencies. I know more about professional service agencies than anybody in the world. I hope that doesn't sound arrogant. I know it does. When you're just starting out, don't hire an agency. Agencies are for people that need rocket fuel. It's I want to pour gas on this fire. It's not I want to crack the code. Unless that's the specific agency's value proposition, and even then I'm skeptical. I think you should crack the code yourself. I don't even think you should hire an EA yet. I think you should hire somebody on Fiverr. Here's the thing. Everybody stops because they think that there's a whole bunch of infrastructure needs. If you have an iPhone that's a year too old or newer, you have a better camera than James Cameron shot the first Avatar on. You don't go out and buy a bunch of equipment, don't go get a bunch of lights, don't get a bunch of mics. Sit in your car or in your office or in your living room, pull up the phone and answer all the questions that you get every single day about your business because we all get them. If you
Yep.
can't create content, first of all, I don't believe that you can't create content. But if you tell me truly, honestly, you can't create content, then you know what you're doing. You don't know what you're doing. I don't care what business you're in. Window washing, let's talk window washing, right? Simple business, isn't it? You need a bucket, a squeegee, and a mop, and then you can be a window washer. But what about double pane windows? What about tint on the windows? What
Right.
about the difference between residential and office? What about a broken window? What about windows in north-south exposure? What about, you know what I mean? Like how often? What about
And each one's a
dust?
topic, right? Each one's a
Yes, what if it
video.
was the ADT sensors? I could think I'm not even in Windows, dude, and
Right.
I could think of 100,000 topics right in a day, and if I can, I can go to ChatGPT and start thinking about Windows. The key is content. The point of content is value. Give first, give last, give more, and stop trying to hold back the secret sauce. Stop that. Stop thinking that somebody's gonna do it themselves or they're gonna steal your idea. They're not. I promise you. They have too much shit going on, and if they do, they were never your customer in the first place. Give away
That's true.
everything. Here's everything that you'll ever need to know about buying a franchise, financing this thing, cleaning your teeth, fixing your car, whatever it is that you're selling, whatever you're schlepping. Go give people all the information. The way that I just did this repurposing thing, fun fact, I'm building an agency that does repurposing content. I just
Interesting.
told everybody exactly what this agency does. Guess what? They're still not
And no
going
one's
to do
gonna
it.
do it.
They're going to come hire me, dude, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're like, yeah, I understand what you said. Super sharp. I'm never going to do that myself. Here's my money.
Makes
Please do it
sense.
for
Yeah.
me. Yeah. But I hold nothing back. So you hold nothing back. You give away the farm. You get some idiot on Fiverr to I shouldn't say an idiot, but they probably are. You get some idiot on Fiverr to chop the videos up for you. And guess what? When you start, it's gonna be bad. It's gonna suck. Go look. I've got a buddy, Alric Heck. He's famous in YouTube now. He's the YouTube guy. YouTube ads beat Facebook ads every time. That's his call line.
Mhm.
If you go and look at his first videos, they're
Horrible.
Alex Hormozy's first videos, horrible.
They
Gary
were.
Vaynerchuk's first videos, horrible. They're so bad. Gary V's first videos, dude, it looks like he's in witness protection. He looks so dark you can't even see him. It just looks like a silhouette, and he's nervous, and his hands are just sitting there by his
True.
side
It's
like a
true.
weirdo. Just do that. Just go start poorly and start putting it up, and then you iterate, and it gets a little better and a little better and a little better and a little better, and it should cost you very little to nothing. And then once you kind of decide, like, oh, and the other piece of this too is you figure out what your comfort zone is. You're doing podcasts.
Mhm.
You like podcasts. You're good at podcasts. You've got like there's a comfort zone. So that's okay to be like, oh, my format, because podcasts can go into YouTube, right? YouTube's a medium. It's
It's
not a
easy.
mode.
Yeah. Right.
So
Plug it in.
whatever you want to, you're like, oh, it's going to be easier for me to interview people. It's going to be easier for me to with my business partner. It's going to be easier for me to just talk at the camera. It's whatever you are comfortable with, figure out what that is. And once you've started to create content, you need an hour a week. Everybody's got that. You need an hour a week. Go out, provide a ton of value, drop it on some freelancer on Fiverr. Once you really crack the code, then you can hire an EA.
Perfect. Simply put, we'll do a follow up when the new business is out. We'll update the blog and we'll put a post out there because there is a lot of interest because, to your point, people don't know where to start. You just gave them a starting point, just the idea of window cleaning alone. So I think they just get in their heads, and I'm guilty of it as well. What can I talk about? Well, I just listed 50 FAQs that I get on a weekly basis. That's
Right.
50 days of content. That is awesome. I want to dive into the new business, VAs, EAs, get into that. But I want to pause here. We're going to conclude our part 2 of the series, and looking forward to diving into Pareto talent. And thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for tuning in. If you want to learn how to make the transition from corporate to owning your franchise, join Giuseppe on the next episode. You can also follow on all social media platforms and achieve financial and time freedom today.